So all of us have experienced at this point a blob. And what that is, if you haven't yet, is a lot of times in our darker ink, sometimes in our lighter, you'll end up with too excess ink in your marker or coming down the barrel of your marker. A lot of times your marker tip will start to look wet, and then you'll end up with it just kind of spilling out the end of your marker. Of course, this happens right when you're in the middle of coloring, and usually in a small detailed area. You've got part of the image done. You'd rather not start over. And so I wanted to show you real quickly today how to correct that, or one way you can try to do some correcting. This isn't a super bad one. It's right in the middle of her hair, and I can hide it pretty well. I could actually darken her hair and hide it, but obviously I've got a big dark brown spot in the middle of her hair. More likely what had happened is it would happen on the bangs and cover part of her face or out into the sky more. So the same repair work will be efficient for wherever the blob happens. It's pretty successful with most colors, even darker colors. The one, of course, that isn't as successful repair-wise is red. As we all know, red tends to be a little volatile, and that has to do with the chemicals that are in that red dye. So, but how would we repair this? So I know I've got a big blob. I've got a big pile of ink there. I want to get rid of some of that ink as best I can. Now, if I come in with my colorless blender marker right now and just start to kind of press down on that, it really has, remember the colorless blender is pushing the ink, and so it's going to push it outward. So I'm going to end up with a bunch of dark brown up here. I'm going to push it down into that highlight, which is not where I want it to go. So what I want to do is push it straight through the paper. So in order to do that, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to put something absorbent underneath my image. So I can take a piece of tissue, I can take paper towel, napkin, something, but I want to lay it underneath my image, something absorbent, not our normal mat. Then I'm going to come back in with my colorless blender, and I'm going to kind of sit right on top of where that has blobbed. Now you're going to notice right away, especially on this colorless blender, I've got an immediate pickup of ink. You can see that brown immediately. I'm going to wipe that off to the side, come back and press down a little more. Again, I've got a little on there. I also sometimes will actually press it down with my finger. I feel like sometimes that holds it versus letting that colorless blender spread out. I'm going to come out to this edge and push that ink back in on her hair so it's on top, and do a little more pressing right on top of that spot. Now the back, you're not going to repair that. It's going to push the ink through to the back. You can see it even push some of that ink onto my tissue. But hopefully what you can see is this is actually clearing this up a little bit. I've lightened that area. I can actually see the stamp line some more. So I would keep working on this. I'll do a few more so you can kind of see as this progressively gets better. So you can see a lot of it at this point has gone through to my tissue. The back is a mess, but who cares? Usually no one's going to see the back. But now I've got something I can work with. Once this is completely dry, I can come back in and do some repair work on the hair. I can maybe add a background color, but you're really not going to see any of that residual blob. So how do we avoid a blob? You don't necessarily avoid it altogether, but here's some tips. I'm going to widen my shot. First off, I mentioned that a lot of times you can see the tip of that marker get wet. It'll literally get shiny and look like it's wet right before that ink just spills out. So if you notice that, first thing you do is pull it away from your artwork and start scribbling off onto the side on a piece of paper. You also want to take the other cap off so you have both ends open. That's going to help pull that ink and back into the tube, rebalance between the two ends, and scribble some of that excess off. And when you feel like you've probably got a bunch off, you can close that lid back up and start coloring again. Keep a real close eye on it to make sure that it is not getting wet again, so you're not gonna explode out on your paper. The other way, one of the main causes for this to happen is that we've overfilled the marker. So a lot of times, what we're recommending people do these days is actually to measure as they refill their markers. This is a really simple little pocket scale, and what I would do is as I'm filling that marker, I'm going to set the marker right on top and double check. Now I know this is too much. It's reading at 15.21. This is way over the amount. I think it's 14.6, but I'm going to put that on the screen. I'm going to put it in my link, but you're going to want to know exactly how much that is. So I already know though that I overfilled this marker, and so that is why it's blobbing and got just way too much ink. So scribbling off even more is probably worth doing before I even start coloring again. So knowing that, I'll just be extremely cautious with this one. I think this is probably mostly dry. So I'm going to come back in and now do some repair work on this cute little image. So it's never perfect. You can never erase it entirely, but you can soften it. You can, on an image that you're really wanting to save because you're further along or you really love the image and you like how it has started, you can do some repair work. The back is going to always have the remnants of that blob, but you can start fresh and save that image. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you will share that information with other people that you know are having the same issue. Thanks for stopping by today. Have a happy, colorful day.